Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is unity and disagreement in the Jewish community. President Trump, you either love him or you hate him. No one is parva when it comes to the President of the United States, and it is playing a significant role in the polarization of the Jewish community in the United States. The mistaken working assumption is that everyone you associate with at work, in synagogue, in school, in your extended family, is of the same point of view as you. Of course, that's wrong. And if they don't think as you do, it is no longer enough to shrug and change the subject. If they don't think as you do, they are wrong, tensions emerge, and often relationships end. Trump, like Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, is an extremely polarizing character. Having just celebrated the completion of the first year in his second term, there are still 3 more years for Trump to maintain his presence at the center of the world stage. Many members of the diaspora Jewish community are virulently anti-Bibi and are of the opinion that Donald Trump has empowered Netanyahu. They are not anti-Israel, they are anti-Bibi. Many of them believe that the entire conflict with the Palestinians would have been resolved if Bibi were removed from power, from office. Throughout modern history, there have been a series of internal conflicts within the Jewish community, no question, history in general. There were ideological differences, there were socialists versus capitalists, Israel versus diaspora, revolutionaries versus supporters of the establishment. There were religious differences between Reform and Conservative and Orthodox and Reconstructionists. Non-Zionists versus Zionists, eating kitniot, legumes on Passover, rice or not on Passover. At times those conflicts rose to such high pitch that they actually became violent. Internal heated debate among Jews is not uncommon. Prime among them was the conflict between the schools of Hillel and Shammai. The schools of Hillel and Shammai in the time of the Mishnah had raging debates. This was the time of the late Second Temple period. Hillel died about the year 10 Common Era CE, and Shammai about 30 the Common Era. Their students and their schools continued the conflicts for decades after. Hillel was more open and lenient of the two, while Shammai was more closed and narrow in his interpretation. There was no personal animus between them. Their disagreements were considered valid for the sake of heaven, that is, l'shem shamayim. So much so that the children of the students intermarried. There was, however, one glaring exception, described in Tosefta of Shabbat 1, 15, and 16. It's called the Day of the Sword, and also called the Day Beit Shammai overcame Beit Hillel. It began with a meeting in the house or the attic of Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Gurion, about decrees, gzerot. Representatives of the school of Shammai blocked the door, preventing the school of Hillel from entering. Violence broke out. People were injured. Several sources actually say some were killed. In the end, 18 gzerot, decrees, were passed in favor of Shammai. Later rabbis say that this story was metaphorical, absolutely not emblematic of the differences between the two schools. With violence, it was merely a terrible exception to the customary debates and unity. Debates and differences among Jewish sects and schools of thought continued throughout the ages. In the more modern times, they even resulted in the cutting off of beards and peyot, the side locks of Jews. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, that's what happened in the Hasidic enclave in Brooklyn, New York, called Williamsburg. A physical conflict emerged between Satmar Hasidim and Chabad Lubavitch Hasidim. Became so fierce that Satmar Hasidim would tackle and cut the beards and peyot of Lubavitch Hasidim. Payas. The ongoing conflict did not fizzle out until the early 1980s. The cutting of another's facial hair was a violent act of de-Judaization. Shearing a beard and sidelocks of another Jew was humiliating. It was an act that forced the victims, in this case adherents to the Chabad Lubavitch sect, to violate the Torah precept. Lubavitch were attacked while walking through Satmar neighborhoods. Lee Avenue between Hooper and Division, Rodney Street between Lee and Division, Rodney near Penn and Division, between Bedford and Lee were the locations of nearly all the attacks. It wasn't a single attack, multiple attacks over years. There were no retaliatory attacks by Lubavitch. While there were certainly many reasons to retaliate and numerous opportunities, there were no retaliatory attacks. The head of the Lubavitcher movement, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, made it very clear. He told his adherents not to organize and not to attack Satmar. And they did as told. The conflict eventually died out. Lubavitcher Hasidim simply avoided the troublesome areas as much as possible, and other issues became focal points of attention. The conflict, Jew fighting Jew on the streets of New York, was not made very public. It was an ideological conflict. The animus between two Hasidic sects was deeply ingrained. Satmar was internally focused, inwardly. Chabad was outwardly focused. In Williamsburg, Satmar had the overwhelming numerical superiority. From the Chabad Lubavitcher point of view, had this gone public, it would have deeply damaged their image. The Lubavitcher Rebbe made it very clear that de-escalating and avoidance was the best strategy. If there is no one to attack, there will be no attacks. As for Satmar, the power conflict between the sons of the Rebbe, the decision as to who or which son would take over the reins, took front and center issues. Southern Williamsburg was burgeoning and the Satmar community was growing fast. They needed city funds for housing and schools, and anti-Jewish attacks by non-Jews were rising. They needed the city's help, and the hooligan reputation was not an asset. Today, we are witnessing the attacks and the rise of anti-Jewish attacks, rabid anti-Semitism, not just in New York but elsewhere. It is possible that the golden age in America are bygone days. Threats to Israel continue to loom large. We as Jews have always had differences of opinion, but it never got the best of us. We can't let it get the best of us now either. Coming up next, Points of View. First up is a column from Ynet written on January 22nd, 2026, and it's penned by Effie Banai. It's entitled No Videos, No Revolution: Why the West is Misreading Iran's Uprising. Subtitled, Analysis: Iran's regime shut down the internet and convinced the world the protests were crushed. The reality is far darker. The uprising has gone underground, becoming more violent, more sophisticated, and more dangerous, led by Generation Z that is not backing down. This column shows a very different insight into what is happening in Iran. Banai shows a part of the revolt in Iran that is not being seen or shown in the Western media. If you go to Ynet, you can watch some of the video clips Banai grabs. They are very impressive and very telling as to what's happening now in Iran. This is how Banai begins. The West loves quick conclusions. When the screens in the Times Square stop showing daylight images of crowds flooding the streets of Tehran, commentators rush to declare the revolution dead. The regime survived, they say. Order has been restored, but they are looking at the macro picture and completely missing the micro reality. If you think calm has returned to Iran, you should know that this fire is far from extinguished. The Iranian regime has successfully carried out a digital deception. It shut down the internet, which according to NetBlock's data, as of yesterday remains at near zero connectivity, blocked social media platforms, and built a firewall designed to keep the outside world blind. When there are no viral TikTok videos, the West assumes the protests have vanished. In reality, the uprising has simply changed form. It has turned into a war of attrition carried out at night, more calculated, more violent, more desperate. This is Banai's essential point. The fight against the regime has become far more serious, he says. Now it has become urban warfare, a great expression. This is what he writes. Iran's young people, a Generation Z unwilling to sell its future to the Ayatollahs, are no longer waiting for validation from abroad. Every night, under the cover of darkness, they take to the streets. This is no longer about placards and chants. It is an urban warfare. Just days ago, a branch of Etka, the supermarket chain owned by the Revolutionary Guards, was set on fire. This was not vandalism. It was a direct strike at the regime's finances and authority. At the same time, the burning of mosques, once an absolute taboo, has become a symbol of resistance to religious coercion. Protesters are no longer fleeing militias. They are confronting them face to face. Those who stay inside their homes are not silent either. In cities like Tehran, Mashhad, Shiraz, a chilling nightly ritual unfolds. Thousands step onto their balconies and scream, "Death to Khamenei." The neighborhood answers back in echo, a chorus of collective rage that no internet blackout can silence. This is psychological warfare against the regime that understands it has already lost control, even inside people's homes. Now Banai describes how they hacked the evening news and put the Shah's son on TV addressing Iran in the news's place. Wow. This is what he writes. In recent days, the movement received a jolt of adrenaline. An unidentified actor, and one can only guess who possesses such technological capabilities, hijacked state television broadcasts. Instead of routine propaganda, protest videos appeared, along with a speech by Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. Despite heavy restrictions, Iran's internal networks filled with footage of citizens filming their television screens as they shouted with joy. These videos have made their way out through indirect channels, proving the spirit of resistance has not been broken. Banai concludes calling on everyone to make the cause public. Banai writes, engage on foreign platforms. Do not leave the comment sections of the BBC, CNN, or the posts of selectively outraged human rights activists empty. Flood them with facts, with the names of detainees, and with the truth of what is happening in the streets. They are fighting for their lives against batons and bullets, wielded by a murderous regime that stops at nothing. The least we can do is fight for awareness. This is an excellent column. Thank you for bringing these examples to our attention. Next up is a column from the Jerusalem Post. It was written on January 25th, 2026, authored by Yisrael Medad, entitled Why Trump's Money Diplomacy Cannot Tame Hamas, Erdogan, Venezuela. Subtitled, Opinion, money can buy a lot, but Trump and company need to know that ideologues and fanatic theocracies driven terrorists are beyond the price he can pay. Medad explains something we all know, but have not really discussed, that some people will not give up their hatred of Jews, no matter how much they get paid. This is how Yisrael Medad begins. Last week, Trump issued a warning of major retaliation against European countries if they sell American assets, including U.S. government bonds. Danish pension funds have already announced they will proceed with that, as well as reviewing their investments in U.S. equities. Trump has agreed to delay the imposition of new tariffs on European products, but in return, he wants the U.S. to be able to regulate Greenland's mineral rights to curb China's influence. Now Kushner showed the Gaza plan for investments. It is impressive, but doubtful. He shows this in Davos. Medad writes about it. Despite these setbacks, Kushner screened mock-ups of the touted new Gaza plan. At Davos, his approach was the plan for a catastrophic success. He displayed for the assembled world leaders a master plan for rebuilding Gaza. His vision includes coastal tourism with waterfront developments and luxury residential buildings. There will be industrial complex, data centers, and advanced manufacturing parks further inland with sports facilities. Trump at his side added, I'm a real estate person at heart, and it's all about location. This is a beautiful piece of property. What it could be. He then said, people who are living so poorly are going to be living so well. How Gazans will be going from tents to affording high-rise rents in a matter left to the solution of other wizards. Or will Israelis move in? Now Medad looks at the peace board and explains its issues and problems with the peace board. Coming back to the sensical considerations, Witkoff, in the January 21st televised interview with CNBC, provided a glimpse into the economic diplomacy could be problematic, especially in the Middle East and for Israel. Asked how the Board of Peace is going, the special envoy explained that they're excited and indicated that a lot of conflicts Trump is seeking to solve, including in Gaza and Syria, are just about miscommunication and bridging relationships. But does Hamas, or the Palestinian Authority, or for that matter, truly desire a relationship that bridges Palestine and Israel? Do they actually suffer from miscommunicating their messaging? Or are they disguising it? Negotiators are allowed to imagine and to hope, but they also are required to be realistic. Money can buy a lot, but Trump and company need to know that ideologues and fanatic theocracy-driven terrorists are beyond the price he can pay. Meidad concludes explaining how one needs to be realistic regarding Hamas especially. Meidad writes, Hamas will never completely disarm or decommission. The towers Kushner and fellow investors will construct not only overlook the Mediterranean Sea, but also Tel Aviv and Beersheba. Moreover, as the various monitors of Palestinian Authority media are pointing out, the rhetoric coming out of Ramallah, as well as the terror mobilization, training, and planning in Hebron, Jenin, and in between, are still promoting the eradication of Israel as an independent Jewish state. Economic diplomacy is useful and can, as a supplemental instrument, be effective. But most academics view it as a stabilizing policy, not a winning one. In our corner of the globe, other considerations must be taken into account. Trump's use of American military power has achieved notable, specific, although limited results. Iran, as of this writing, has gotten away with murdering thousands of its citizens. Venezuela is still ruled by a radical communist, and Hamas still rules in Gaza, above and below ground. Meidad provided a very realistic understanding. He is not very hopeful. Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. I want to show you one poster and 8 cartoons today. Most of the cartoons relate to Trump's peace board, which is the focus of a lot of attention. First up is a poster from the Poster Wars. It draws a parallel between 2 pictures, one of the KKK and their white hoods, and the other with the keffiyeh worn to support Hamas. The poster reads, "Same sheet, different day." This is so very true. This next and second cartoon has Trump pushing UN and NATO and other allies off a gangplank. The allies are saying, "I told you that we shouldn't have accepted the invitation to his Board of Peace." Next up is also about the Board of Peace. Trump is outside the UN asking people to sign up, almost begging them to sign up. It's a difficult point. This next cartoon has Trump on a throne, a large chair, of the Board of Peace. It's behind him and in front of him, and he's sleeping, slumped over in his chair, falling asleep at the wheel, so to speak. In this cartoon, Trump is carrying a scepter with a red cape walking behind him, and he's walking through the United Nations. It's a bad sign. In this cartoon, Trump is selling space in Mara, Gaza, for $1 billion. That was the sign-in fee, the ante. Here Bibi is selling real estate also in Gaza. Pretty sad. Bibi Real Estate Board of Peace, it says. This cartoon is entitled "Bibi is Supposed to Be in Hell." The caption reads, "It really doesn't matter if you never believed in us. We believed in you." A sad portrayal. Finally, this cartoon is entitled "Insulted Nazis." Trump is hiding behind ICE as a couple is calling him a Nazi in the Gestapo. He says, "Stop calling me a Nazi." In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Russian President Vladimir Putin said he met with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, envoys of U.S. President Donald Trump. According to the Russian news agencies, Putin said during a meeting with his country's National Security Council that he will discuss with the two the possible use of funds from Russian assets frozen following the war in Ukraine for the payment of $1 billion that Trump demands for a permanent membership in the Peace Council he established for the Gaza Strip reconstruction. This possibility is also under discussion with representatives of the American administration. Putin said, adding that he will also discuss the use of frozen funds with Palestinian Authority Chair Mahmoud Abbas, whom he also met with recently. U.S. President Donald Trump said that Iran must stop their nuclear program. He said this in an interview on CNBC, adding, "I ordered 25 more B-2 bombers. I hope that no further action will be needed. They are firing indiscriminately at people in the streets." Iranian state television published its first official update on the number of casualties from massive protests that took place this month in the Islamic Republic. They are not to be believed, but they are their official numbers, and there is a question between them, and you'll see that in a moment. According to state television, the death toll stands at 3,117 people, a figure significantly lower than reports of human rights activists. According to the Iranian television statement, though, there were 2,427 civilians and security forces dead. That's a significant difference between the official number. State television did not provide details about the remaining casualties, including the count and what the difference was. U.S. Treasury Department announced the addition of 7 organizations and 1 Palestinian activist in Britain to its sanctions list due to their ties with Hamas. Among the blocked organizations are the charities Al-Falah, Al-Noor, Al-Salama, and the Popular Conference of Palestinians in the Diaspora, based in Beirut and Istanbul. Zahir Birawi, a Palestinian resident in Britain, described as connected to the Popular Conference, was also added to the list, according to the Treasury Department. These entities that present themselves as health or humanitarian aid organizations, but they serve as an economic and organizational support for Hamas. The sanctions include assets freeze and a comprehensive ban on conducting business with American entities, organizations, and companies. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Indonesia, Pakistan, Qatar issued a joint statement confirming they're joining the Gaza Peace Council, the Peace Board. Germany rejected the proposal to join the Peace Council in Gaza, according to the report from the German magazine Der Spiegel. That was all based on the Foreign Ministry document that it obtained, the German Foreign Ministry document. The document, a kind of internal memo, was prepared late last week ahead of the meeting of the European Union ambassadors, saying that they would not be joining, and they did not want to spend $1 billion to become a permanent member of the Council. President Donald Trump said at the World Economic Forum in Davos that if Hamas doesn't agree to give up its weapons, they will blow it up. He added, "This is what Hamas agreed to, and they must do it. We will soon know if they agreed to give up their weapons." Regarding Iran, he said, "It's no longer the bully in the Middle East." This is amazing, this story. Michigan Assistant Attorney General Zina Ozer was forced to leave her job after the office investigated posts against Israel and the United States in which she wrote, among other things, and she actually wrote the words out, "F Israel, F America," and described Israel as a criminal Zionist entity. Additionally, Ozer appeared at an event supporting those convicted of transferring money to Hamas, where she said, "We understood that the law doesn't protect us. It's sad that it took a genocide for Palestinians to be at the center." Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett invited Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to a debate, anytime, anywhere. According to Bennett, "I care about the state of Israel. I present a positive vision. In contrast to the chaos, mess, and hatred, I present a future and hope. I am not looking to humiliate Netanyahu. I intend to replace him. I need to bring everyone together, and I don't want to trample anyone, simply to win." And finally, Fabio Bolsonaro, a candidate for the Brazilian presidential election and son of former president of Brazil, toured Samaria with the Samarian Regional Council head Yossi Dagan, and said that his visit, if elected, would be the first to Judea and Samaria. Bolsonaro said, "I want to express my full solidarity with the residents of the West Bank for what they have gone through. I hope God blesses more and more of this land and the people who live here. I give all my support to the people of Judea and Samaria. We are together with you. Yossi Dagan, head of the Samaritan Regional Council, said that all the people of Israel are in the midst of a difficult war against these barbarians from Hamas, and we are not fighting only for our security. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. This is the story of the Israeli bobsled team that qualified, you got it, for the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan. It's nothing short of a miracle. This is the very first time Israel will have a bobsled team in the Winter Olympics. There's one American new immigrant, one Druze, and 3 native Israelis on the team. It is miraculous and inspirational. Watch the clip.
A story over a decade in the making, Israel bobsled. 3 months ago, 5 Jews, a Druze, and a Shiba Inu took Israel to the ice to fulfill an impossible dream.
Some call them shul runnings or the little sled that could. Truly just an inspiring run for a team that has made the impossible possible.
A story that can be described as only in Israel. Blood, sweat, tears, and a massive dose of never say never.
Bobsled's band of underdogs now standing on the cusp of Olympic history. Hard to believe.
In 2026, a group of 6 Israelis and a Shiba Inu made history. Fueled by a dream and love of country, the Israeli bobsled team qualified for the Milan Winter Olympic Games. There's always those who say we can't, won't, shouldn't. But we don't need permission, and we don't need to be told. Because when it comes to Israel, it's in our DNA. We just do. Whether you're Israeli, Jewish, Druze, or just one who believes in miracles, this team is your team. We are proud to represent you. Let's make history together. See you in Milan.
Wow. Go for the gold. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.